Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I'm back with a new layout for Hip Kit Club, and I'm using the July 2020 kits again. And I'm going to focus on the stamp set that we got this month. This is exclusive to Hip Kits, and it is basically a bunch of shapes that create these layered flowers, and they almost look identical to these flowers here on this Jen Hadfield pattern paper. And so I'm going to use this pattern paper as a guide to stamping some of these flowers, because when I first got this stamp set, I was kind of intimidated by it because, you know, when you look at all those shapes, they just look like random blobs. But when you layer them together, they create these really pretty flowers. And I have yet to really do this. So I thought, you know what, this is going to be the layout where I do this. And so I'm just going to start experimenting and see what I can come up with. And so I grabbed a sheet of cardstock. This is just smooth cardstock. I didn't want textured for this. And I pulled out all of the ink pads that we've gotten recently. The black ink pad there is from my stash, but I'm going to use the 3 that we got a few months ago from Prima, those Art Philosophy ink pads right there, as well as the 3 that we got recently from the Stamp Market, the yellow, the orange, and the red color. And the fun thing about these stamps is that you want to use a different color in the same color family to add the layers, like this orange one here. I did pull in some of my Distress Oxide pads from my own stash. The orange flower there, I used the Prima stamp pad and then a stamp pad from my own stash to create the darker orange. So that's what's fun about these. Lots of possibilities, endless color choices, but you can mix and match and create any color scheme you want, really. And I think the fun part about these flowers is the black outline. It really creates this fun image that really mimics that pattern paper that I showed there earlier. So this was just me experimenting. I used, like I said, I used some of the ink pads that we got in the color kits in previous months. I used some of my own, and I just kind of went crazy stamping and seeing what I could come up with. And this is what I've got so far. I really like that little flower. Once I started stamping that one, I thought, you know what, I'm going to kind of start to cut these out and see what I've got and see how many flowers do I really want to use on this page. So I grabbed my little scissors there and started to fussy cut out several of the flowers that I have created so far. And you can see there, look, it almost looks exactly like the flowers on that pattern paper. So once I figured out how to do these correctly, it was pretty addicting. I went back and I did fussy cut out some of the flowers from the paper. So the yellow one there is from the paper, the blue ones are the ones that I made. So you can't even really tell the difference. Love how that turned out. I've got those 2 black and white photos there that I'm going to scrap, and I want to do lots of mixed media on my background, so I'm going to coat it with clear gesso first. And this is thick, smooth white cardstock. I get a lot of questions about the cardstock that I use primarily for my backgrounds, and it is the Basil Marshmallow. It's smooth, it's thick, it works great with gesso, it works great with pretty much any of the mixed media products that I use. Okay, the background is dry, and I thought that I would do a shape on the background for this layout. So I hand cut a heart out of some spare cardstock, and then I'm going to lightly trace it with a pencil. And this is going to serve as my guide and make sure that the heart stays centered and doesn't get all crooked. And I want my photos to kind of stack there on the right, kind of like that. I'm going to do a little bit of mixing and matching here, and I'm going to start with the orange Nuvo paste that we get in the July color kits. And I'm moving my lights over because there's going to be a glare on this plastic, so I want to make sure that things aren't too bright. So I'm going to mix some of this orange color, it's called Orange Blush, with the pink. This color is also called Blush, but it was from a few kits ago. It's a pink Art Philosophy watercolor. Use a little bit of water and a brush to mix it together, and then basically just start to create this heart. I'm going to go over it with the brush and actually get it pretty straight since I traced it first. If I would have tried this freehand, there's no telling what it would have looked like. But you can't even see the pencil lines in the end. So this is a fun way to do some mixed media if you want a controlled look instead of just a messy random look. I don't want the heart to be perfect, so I'm going to come back in with some water and start to dilute what I just did and kind of make it look like it's running and bleeding and spreading and kind of leaking. I guess leaking isn't the best term, but you know what I mean. I'm kind of making it uneven and wonky. And this works great because I put the gesso on the paper first, and it's allowing the color to kind of reactivate and blend with the water. And this is going to get a little bit thicker, meaning the outline of the heart, because I'm going to be adding different things to it. And I wanted it to be orange, mostly orange. It's going to change. It's going to be more pink in the end. But when I created the heart right away, the orange color was a little too dark because I do have orange flowers that I created that were a lighter orange color. So the oranges were way off. So I wanted to kind of work with the orange that I've got on the heart and try to change it up just a little bit so it works with all of the colors of those flowers, because all those flowers are going to come back onto the heart. So I'm going to keep pulling in some pink, watercoloring it just around the edges there, adding some splatters. I do dab some of it up, and I'm going to come back in with some other colors here to continuously work with it. So I'm going to pull in some yellow. I know that looks like a lime green, but it's that yellow ink pad that we got from Stamp Market a couple months ago. Citrine, I think it's called. And I felt like this would kind of change the tone of the orange a little bit and make it more of a warm orange instead of a reddish orange. And this is the fun part for me well, one of the fun parts. It's all fun, but one of the fun parts of doing something like this is working with different products and adding layer after layer after layer to change the color to get it exactly like you want it. And, you know, sometimes when you add mixed media right away, it's not the exact color that you want. And so people tend to get frustrated or they just chunk it in the trash because it's not right. But if you keep working with it, chances are you can get the color that you want, or you can get it close enough to where everything is going to work and it's going to look like the right color. Because sometimes, even though it may look like the wrong color, when you add everything back on top of it, it may look a little bit different. And so keep working at it if it doesn't look correct right off the bat, because you can add things to it to alter it. So that's what I'm going to keep doing here. I'm going to keep adding some of that pink watercolor. I had mixed it originally with the orange, and so it had turned more of the orange color. So I wanted just some of the pink. And I did let it dry a little bit in spots before I added this layer of the pink. And I'm using some water. I'm just using the brush. I'm using my finger to help smudge it around. And I don't know where the flowers are going to go yet, but I know that they're going to be somewhere around inside, around the outside edges of this heart. So I'm dabbing up just a little bit of it. Still wet. See what I'm going to do next. Okay, this is another Nuvo paste. Now, we got this several months ago, but it was in a Hip Kit color kit. And this one's called Peony. Peony? Is that how you say that flower? Peony? Pink. And I'm just going to scrape it right over what I've done here. And this turned out really cool because it gave me some fun texture, and it also helped to blend some of the wet areas. So I'm getting some blending with the orange and the pink and the yellow. And I just love these Nuvo paste, or Nuvo, I'm sorry, they're mousses. Mousses? That doesn't sound right. That's probably wrong. But you know what I mean. Mousse. Because it's shiny and shimmery, and it's got a really fun texture, and it spreads on like butter, you know? And so that was kind of fun to just smudge it right onto the paper on top of everything. So at this point, I really like how it looks, but I thought that I might soften it up just a little bit so it wasn't so shiny and so pink. So I thought I would add some white splatters with some white acrylic paint there that I just put right onto my desk, added a little bit of water to. But my heart was still kind of wet, so the splatters just sort of soaked into the wet spots didn't really have the effect I was going for. So I just went ahead and blended those in. And this did soften it up a little bit. And you know, I'm not really, at this point, I'm not really concerned that the heart is super shiny. Like if I cover it up with some other products and some of the shine goes away from the mousse, that's okay. At this point, I'm just trying to get the color down. I'm trying to get the size of the heart right. And so when I put the photos back to test it out, I felt like I needed the heart to be a little bit thicker. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going back into the pink paste with the palette knife and just going around the edges, kind of making the heart a little bit thicker. So when I add all the flowers that I'm going to add and then the photos on the bottom right side, more of the heart will show. So that's all I'm doing there. And you can really see how shimmery and shiny this paste is. Why do I keep calling it paste? It's mousse. Mousse. That's the word of the day. Mousse. I'm going to smudge the edges a little bit with my wet brush, a little bit of water there. But I really like how this turns out, and I think it's a fun way to add some mixed media to your background. Something different, you know? Haven't done a big heart in a while. Okay, so I like where the photos are going to go, and now I'm going to start to play around with the placement of the flowers because I got a lot of those, and I realized that I wanted to add a little bit of blue to the background because I do have some blue flowers. And so I'm going to come in with the Tiffany Lou Blue Lindy's Starburst spray that we got a long time ago. I'm getting low on that stuff because I've been using it a lot lately. It's a really pretty turquoise blue that matches these flowers perfectly. And I just added a little bit of that with some splatters. So not a whole lot, but there's still an echo of that color on the background. So now I'm going to see where everything's going to go. I want to layer some of the big flowers around the photos and kind of spread the colors around. And then, yeah, there were so many different flowers to create using that stamp set, but I don't know, I started making these little tiny ones and thought those are so cute. I want to concentrate on those. So I played around with the placement of the flowers, and then I took a break and came back and decided to add some machine stitching to the heart. And I just used the light blue color thread and went around the heart, through the heart. And I like that this adds some fun texture to the background, and also it adds more pops of that blue color. So I'm going to come back in with all of the flowers and try to get them arranged like I want them. And I know my lighting keeps getting brighter and darker. It was a weird sunny day as far as lighting goes, and so it totally affects my light on my desk when that happens. And so I tried to fix it in editing, but I feel like the shininess of the mousse also reflects my lights over my desk, and so it's hard to get the lighting right when I'm dealing with shiny things. So hopefully you can still see the colors okay. I was just adding a little bit of layering behind the photos there using some white tissue paper. I always like to do that just to create a little bit of a subtle border behind the photos. And then I'm going to pull in some pattern papers and some cardstock to layer behind the photos. And I'm looking for things that have the orange or the pink, the yellow or the blue colors, because those are the main colors I'm going to be focusing on. So I found that orange cardstock in the cardstock kit. I just tore a little bit of piece that, well, I cut it and then tore it so the edges are kind of messed up there, because you know me, I like messed up edges. And I ran it through my edge distresser there to kind of make the edges a little more textured. And then this is a paper from Dear Lizzie that I've already cut into and torn up for previous layouts. And I'm going to use a piece of that as well as the striped paper that I've already used on another layout as part of a layer behind the photos. And the point of these layers is not to see the majority of the layer. It's just the hint of something peeking around the edges. You get a peek of that orange, you get a peek of this purpley pink color, but it's just enough to create a detail. You know, it's not one of those details that jumps out at you when you look at the layout, but it's just something that helps the photo to stand out a little bit more. And so sometimes, you know, think about small, tiny details, the ones that you can't really see a lot of, but sometimes those details make a big difference. And I love layering behind the photos because it does enhance the photo, you know, and I always say that the main point of making the layout is to showcase your photo. So I never want to add something that's going to, you know, take away from the photo. And so I feel like layers are a great way to enhance the photo. And the more layers you add, the more visible they're going to become. But in this case, I just did a couple of small layers around there. So now I'm going to come back in with the flowers, and we're going to put this puzzle together and see how it looks. It's funny, now I look at the heart, you can't really see a lot of orange. There's some orange there, but it's mostly pink. But it started out as orange. And again, to me, that's the fun journey of a mixed media background or a mixed media layout, is it starts out one way and it can completely end up a totally different way. And it's just the fun of layering and mixing and matching and putting it all together, and that happens. But I wouldn't have got that color if I wouldn't have started with the orange. So it's all building blocks of color and product. So I really like how this looks. I don't want to move anything, but I do want to pop up some of the flowers. So I'm going to use some little tiny pieces of adhesive foam on some of the flowers because this is going to create dimension. I don't want all of them to be popped up. Since some of them are going to overlap, I want the ones on top to be popped up. So I did that. I'm going to start to glue things down very carefully, exactly where they are. I do want to add in some colored thread behind that big yellow flower, so I'm not going to glue that one down yet. And I'm going to use blue thread because I feel like the color yellow, the big flower is yellow and then the heart is pink, so I feel like blue is the color that's calling out to me to add there. So I'm going to pull in some, it's the same thread that I used to stitch. And I had to work with this for a while because the flower's so big, I couldn't get my little thread nest there just like I wanted it to where you could see enough of it, so I had to keep pulling at it. But I eventually get it, and you can see the hints of that blue color around there. And then I'm going to pull in more of that blue thread over to the right, kind of underneath that pink flower there. Kind of, well, I guess more behind the orange there on the right side of that photo, but I just felt like since the heart is pink and then you come into the pink flower, I needed something to separate that, and the blue thread did that. And then I'm going to pull in some yellow thread over here because that flower is blue and I felt like yellow would be a good pop of color for that section. And so now I'm going to come in and glue down everything else that is still on the loose. Oh yeah, more blue thread. I felt like I couldn't see it enough, so I just added in some more. And I want the photos to be kind of crooked, like you see here. I like things to be a little skewed. Not all the time, but most of the time. Like I wanted the heart straight, but everything else on it is kind of chaotic and crooked. So it's perfectly straight meets crooked. It's the perfect combination, right? It's how my brain works. I know that makes no sense. Usually you want everything straight or everything crooked, but I like both. It just depends on what it is. I'm pulling in some of these clear, black clear Maggie Holmes stickers. I'm going with some of the stems and the leaves because I wanted to pull in some more pops of black. Since I've got black in the photos and black in those flowers, I felt like I needed some more pops of black. And these were perfect because these stickers look like stamps when they're on the background, which I love, but they're stickers. So I'm going to use some of the tiny little leaves, and I like how that looks. And then I went through the other sticker sheets from Dear Lizzie, the other sticker sheets from Maggie Holmes. I'm going to use this one here that says The Sweetest, and I'm just going to stick that above the top photo there. And then I tried to use this sticker here as a layer because it's black, but it just, I don't know, I didn't like it. So I took that up and went a different direction. I decided to add in a couple more flowers there. I'm going to overlap that orange one onto the photo. And then I'm going to use one of these little words here. I was going to use one of them, but I went to tear the edge of it and I actually tore the word. So I came back in with this one that says snapshot, and I thought I was going to use it on the white section down at the bottom right by the yellow flower, but changed my mind. I'm going to use a couple of these stickers from Maggie Holmes. I love those cute little, they're so tiny and cute, and the fonts are all different. Some of them have scripty font. They're so generic too, so you could use them on any type of themed layout whatsoever. They're awesome. And I don't think you'll ever run out because there are a ton of them. But I'm going to use some of those. I wanted to use one of these stickers here from this, what is that? Simple Stories Puffy Stickers sheet. And I wanted to use words that would fit. So I knew sweet was small, and I felt like my title needed to go up on the upper left section, somewhere there where there was some white space. And sweet fit perfectly right there. And I thought I was going to use sassy, but I didn't like how that looked. So I'm going to take sassy off and add so. And it nestled, shout out Jen Scow, nestled right there. It worked perfectly. I love all the nestling. I'm going to say nestle a lot here because that is the one main thing I have learned from Jen Scow. She is the nestling queen. She can make anything nestle anywhere and make it look so easy, like it was just born to be there. So I'm channeling her, and I love the way So Sweet nestles in those flowers there. And then I tucked that little snapshot word, I nestled it underneath the EET, and it fit perfectly. I was so excited. I was like, yay, Jen Scow, yay, Jen Scow. Yep, loved it. So I'm stamping now. I stamped picture perfect down at the bottom, and I was so happy that I stamped that neatly without making a mess. And I wanted to stamp this camera, but I was too nervous. So I stamped it on some scrap card stock and then cut it out because, yeah, I had a feeling I was going to mess that up. And plus, I wanted to put the camera right above the, right to the right of So on So Sweet, and I didn't want to stamp on top of the sewing because that would just look terrible. So I, yeah, cut it out, and now it looks like a cute little die cut that I can move, and it's going to go right there. Again, nestle, yay. I love when things fit right where they're supposed to go, and it just looks like, oh, that's the perfect home for you. So that's where it's going to go, right there. Okay, so this is what I got so far. I'm loving those flowers. I'm loving the title right where it is. I don't want to do too much more because I feel like the white space there, I like it. However, that is where my journaling needs to go, or that's where I felt like I wanted it to go. I'm not going to cover up that whole white section of the heart, but that's where my journaling is going to go. And I felt like that was a cool spot to do it because it was different. Usually I do my journaling at the bottom, but I like how it looks there. It was, you know, a wide open spot. So that's where it went. I decided to do something different for my black splatters today and water down some black acrylic paint and lightly and carefully use a brush. And it worked out great because I wanted these to look kind of faded when they dried. And so I made sure to dab some of those up. Some of them look faded and some of them are pretty crisp. But anyway, that's the final layout. I really love how this turned out. You can see the true colors there now that my bright shiny lights aren't on it. And here are all the close-ups. I hope you guys got some ideas from this. I hope this inspires you to create some layered stamps. Like I said, I was intimidated by that stamp set in the beginning, but once I experimented with it and just started playing around, it was really easy to make some flowers, and they turned out really cute, and there are all kinds of flowers on there. So I hope you guys will give it a try, and let me know if you have any questions about anything that I did or any of the products. I believe the August kits are shipping, so hopefully my layout next week will be with the August kits. Can't wait to get those. There are a ton of exclusive things in those kits. So I will see you in my next video. I hope you guys have a great week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you then.